Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Pakistan Army says a soldier has been martyred and 3 others injured in a terrorist attack in southwestern province of Balochistan. In a statement, the military's media wing said the terrorists attacked the security forces convoy during a routine patrolling near the Kech district. Indian troops have martyred 2 more civilians in the occupied Kashmir. The occupation forces targeted the youths during a cordon and search operation in the Rambirgarh area of the Srinagar. The occupied valley has been under New Delhi's crushing curfew and communication blackout for the past 355 days. In Sudan, gunmen have shot dead 20 people after a row over an agricultural land in the Darfur region. A tribal chief said the government handed back the land to their owners 2 months ago, but the land grabbers didn't accept the decision and attacked. Women and children are also among those dead. Somalia's parliament has removed Prime Minister Hassan al-Khair by a vote of no confidence. The Speaker of the House said lawmakers voted 170 to 8 to remove the Prime Minister. The Speaker said that Khair had failed to establish national forces to tighten security for the federal and the state governments. The US has reported 1,157 COVID-19 deaths and over 73,000 cases in the last 24 hours. The total number of infections in the country has surpassed 4.1 million, with nearly 146,000 deaths. In Brazil, 1,156 more people have died from the virus, increasing the tally to over 85,000. Meanwhile, Pakistan has recorded 24 deaths overnight, taking the toll to 5,787, with nearly 272,000 cases. Worldwide, the death count has exceeded 638,000, while cases top 15.6 million. England are all out for 369 against West Indies in their first innings of the third test at Old Trafford. Oli Pope top scorer with 91 runs, while Stuart Broad made a quick 562 around the end to boost the total. For West Indies, Kemar Roach was the pick of the bowlers with 4 wickets. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan Army says a soldier has been martyred and 3 others injured in a terrorist attack in southwestern province of Balochistan. In a statement, the military's media wing said the terrorists attacked the security forces convoy during a routine patrolling near the Kech district. It says security forces cordoned off the area and started search operation. Indian troops have martyred 2 more civilians in the occupied Kashmir. The occupation forces targeted the youths during a cordon and search operation in the Rambirgarh area of Srinagar. The troops have sealed all the entry and exit points of the area. Indian atrocities in occupied territories have sharply increased despite the COVID-19 outbreak. The occupied valley has been under New Delhi's crushing curfew and communication blackout for the past 355 days. Pakistan's Foreign Minister says the UN General Assembly's President-elect Volkan Bozkır will be briefed on human rights violations by Indian forces in occupied Kashmir. Bozkır will undertake a day-long visit to Pakistan on July the 27th. In a press conference, Shah Mahmood Qureshi said 5th of August would mark 1 year to the Indian unilateral and illegal annexation of the occupied valley. He said people of Kashmir have suffered badly during the past 1 year. There have been sheer violations of human rights in occupied Kashmir. Qureshi said India is resorting to unprovoked ceasefire violations along the line of control. He said Pakistan will continue to highlight Indian atrocities at all relevant international forums. In Pakistan, 24 more people have died from the new coronavirus in the past day, raising the total to 5,787. The Health Ministry said 1,487 new cases were reported overnight as the tally crossed 271,000. Officials said over 236,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. The ministry said there are now over 29,000 active cases in the country. Sindh remains the worst hit province with over 116,000 infections, while Punjab has reported over 91,000 cases. In the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, the affected tally is over 33,000, while there are over 11,000 cases in Balochistan. Capital city Islamabad has reported close to 15,000 cases, while Azad Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan have nearly 4,000 cases. The US has reported 1,157 COVID-19 deaths and over 73,000 cases in the last 24 hours. The total number of infections in the country has surpassed 4.1 million with nearly 146,000 deaths. In Brazil, 1,156 more people have died from the virus, increasing the tally to over 85,000. Worldwide, the death count has exceeded 638,000, while cases top 15.6 million. More in this report.
The coronavirus pandemic is accelerating rapidly, especially in the regions of Americas, Far East and South Africa. Mexico City's mayor has warned of a second wave of coronavirus as the cases top 370,000, with the total deaths crossing 42,000. The cases began to level off in mid-June, but recent numbers raise fears of a rebound of infections. In the US, the White House has pushed on its stance of reopening schools amid the pandemic. It said children should go back to school even if it turns out they are transmitting the deadly virus.
There have also been few reports of children being the primary source of COVID-19 transmission among family members. That's where the data currently stands. But that being said, even if there is transmission and later studies come out, let's say, we believe that students should be going back to school because the effect on a child, we know scientifically, they are not affected in the same way as an adult.
France has tested its water waste from the Paris sewage system once more after traces of COVID-19 were found in it at the end of June. But researchers said it did not show a surge of COVID-19 infection. Meanwhile, in the UK, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said we'll be past coronavirus by mid-2021, but warned of a tough times ahead.
I think that by the middle of next year, we will be well on the way past it. But I must be clear with people. I do still think that we have tough times ahead in keeping this virus under control, and we have tough times ahead in coming through economically.
Elsewhere, mainland China has reported 34 new cases, all of which were domestically transmitted. South Korea has reported 113 new cases in the past 24 hours, which is its first daily jump above 100 in nearly 4 months. The country is struggling to contain a spike in fresh virus transmissions since early May when it eased social distancing rules.
Kabul says Afghan forces have killed 16 Taliban in 2 separate operations in Herat and Takhar provinces. In a statement, the Defense Ministry said the fighters were planning to attack Afghan military posts in Zawal and Baharak districts. The ministry said Taliban's deputy shadow governor for Zawal, Mullah Wafa, was killed in the raid, while 13 others were also wounded. It said in Takhar, 3 others, and including 1 commander, were wounded in the operation. The Taliban have not yet responded to Kabul's claims. U.S. Special Representative for Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, says the inter-Afghan talks have never been as close as they are now. Speaking at a virtual event organized by the U.S. Institute of Peace, Khalilzad said the war has left huge burdens on the U.S., Afghanistan, and the world community. Khalilzad said the negotiations are a defining moment for Afghanistan as well as the region. He said casualties among the Afghan military personnel and civilians have been reduced this year as compared to the last one. The envoy said Washington is committed to reducing troops in Afghanistan, but it will be conditional. A Singaporean man has pleaded guilty to conducting espionage in the U.S. for Chinese intelligence. In a statement, U.S. Justice Department said Yun Wei Yu entered a guilty plea in a Washington court to one charge of operating illegally as a foreign agent. It said Yun used the consultancy to access and pay U.S. military and government employees with high-level security clearances. In a statement submitted to the court, he admitted using his political consultancy to collect information for Beijing between 2015 and 2019. U.S. authorities have also arrested 4 Chinese academics in recent weeks, charging them over hiding their ties to China's People's Liberation Army. China has urged Germany not to yield to the U.S. pressure to take sides in the ongoing tensions between Washington and Beijing. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi said Washington is creating an ideological confrontation and openly threatening other countries to pick sides. After a virtual meeting with Wang's German counterpart, Heiko Maas said Berlin deems Beijing as an important partner as well as a competitor. Meanwhile, Russia said Moscow and Beijing are striving to cement ties for stability and security in the world. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said U.S. statement is a try to create a wedge in Sino-Russian ties. She said Washington provoking tensions with Beijing is detrimental not only to them but to the overall international situation. This comes a day after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called for the creation of an anti-China alliance. Australia has joined the U.S. in rejecting China's claims in the South China Sea. In a filing, Australia's mission to the UN said Beijing's claims in the energy-rich waters are inconsistent with the law of the sea. The statement said there is no legal basis for Beijing claims to maritime rights and interests under the 1982 UN Convention. Washington accuses Beijing of militarizing the South China Sea to intimidate its neighbors. Beijing claims 90% of the energy-rich waters, but Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan and Vietnam also lay partial claims. In Sudan, gunmen have shot dead 20 people after a row over an agricultural land in the Darfur region. A tribal chief said the government handed back the land to their original owners 2 months ago, but the land grabbers didn't accept the decision and attacked. Women and children are also among those dead. Rebel groups from Darfur and southern Sudan have engaged in peace talks for months. Somalia's parliament has removed Prime Minister Hassan al-Khair by a vote of no confidence. The Speaker of the House said lawmakers voted 170 to 8 to oust the Prime Minister. The vote follows the dispute over the timing of national election, as well as criticism of Khair's efforts to tighten security in the country. The Speaker said that Khair had failed to establish national forces to tighten security for the federal and the state governments. The Speaker urged the country's president to appoint a new Prime Minister. In a statement, President Mohammed Abdullahi Mohammed said he had accepted the decision of the lawmakers to remove Khair. He cited the need to preserve the unity of the government. Russia says the UK and the US accusations regarding its anti-satellite weaponry tests are a distortion of the truth. In a statement, the Defense Ministry says the tests did not endanger other spacecraft. The ministry said the country's July 15 tests did not violate any principles of international law. It said the UK and the US are accusing Russia to justify their weapons deployment in space. This comes after US State Department said a Russian satellite actually appears to be in orbit anti-satellite weaponry. UK Space Directorate also expressed concern of the tests and said the Russian satellite had the characteristics of a weapon. The US and Russia are to hold bilateral talks on space security in Vienna next week, the first since 2013. Thousands have gathered to protest for third week in a row against President Vladimir Putin's handling of the regional political crisis in Russia's Kharkiv city. Angry demonstrators came out against the detention of the popular regional governor Sergei Furgal. Kremlin said Furgal has been arrested on murder charges, while protesters cite political victimization. The former governor has also denied the charges against him. Putin named Mikhail Diktyryov as the new acting governor of the region, but protesters say he has no connection to the region, calling him to step down as well. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Israel says its army helicopters have struck military targets in southern Syria. The defense ministry said the military carried out strikes in retaliation for the earlier munitions fired from Syria towards Israel. The ministry said a number of targets were struck, including Syrian army's observation posts and intelligence collection system. Syria state media said Israeli helicopters targeted 3 outposts in its southern Quneitra area with anti-tank guided missiles. No casualties have been reported so far. The strikes came hours after America's top general Mark Milley made an unannounced visit to Israel for talks on regional security. Israeli police have arrested 55 citizens for protesting near Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence in West Jerusalem. Thousands of demonstrators are venting their anger out against the premier's mishandling of the coronavirus crisis and corruption. In a statement, the police said the arrests were made on the charges of causing public disturbance. It said that the police dispersed the protesters to restore the public order. Wearing protective masks, protesters chanted slogans and demanded Netanyahu's ouster. The demonstration started last month, and police have arrested around 100 protesters over the past 2 weeks. Turkey has condemned statements by Greek officials and a flag-burning protest after Islamic prayers were held in Istanbul's Hagia Sophia. Foreign Ministry said Greece showed its enmity towards Islam and Turkey, using Hagia Sophia mosque prayers as an excuse. Turkey held congregational Friday prayers yesterday at the Hagia Sophia Mosque for the first time in 86 years. Far-right Greek extremists burned Turkish flags to protest the reopening of the mosque for worshippers. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis called the Turkish move a sign of weakness and a violation of cultural heritage.
What is unfolding in Constantinople today is not a demonstration of strength, a proof of weakness. They do not have the power to dim the brightness of this monument that is part of the world's cultural heritage.
The US will reinterpret a Cold War-era arms pact between 34 nations to allow defense contractors to sell more drones to allies. The White House said President Donald Trump has decided to invoke US national discretion to revamp the drone export policy. Under this change, the drones flying under 800 kilometers per hour will be considered in a lower category. The measure will allow export of US drones to less stable governments that were forbidden from buying them under the missile technology control regime. In a statement, U.S. State Department spokesperson Megan Ortegas said Washington remains committed to the agreement. The 33-year-old MTCR treaty classifies large drones as cruise missiles, resulting in rare approvals due to high export restrictions. U.S. prosecutors have unveiled charges against 18 Portland protesters arrested this week in a federal clampdown on the demonstrations. In a press release, U.S. Justice Department said the charges include assaults on officers, destruction of property, looting, arson, and vandalism. The release said the charges stem from 3 days of violence between 20th and 22nd of July. It said the federal court released all 18 defendants pending jury trials or other follow-up court proceedings. The Justice Department said U.S. Marshal Service and the Federal Protective Service are jointly investigating the cases. Earlier, the White House deployed federal agents to Oregon, where anti-racism protests have been going on for 58 straight days. In Hungary, thousands of protesters have taken to the streets of Budapest against perceived government attacks on media freedoms. 3 editors and more than 80 journalists of an online media outlet resigned after its owner refused to reinstate chief editor Szabolcs. Dall's dismissal has increased concern that Prime Minister Viktor Orban's nationalist government is intensifying efforts to muzzle critical voices. Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó said his government was facing untrue accusations with respect to threats to media freedoms. Greek officials have announced that a wildfire raging in its 3rd day southwest of Athens has begun to die down. The blaze has been brought under control by a large deployment of over 300 firefighters and 90 fire engines. Fire Brigade Chief said that the overall status of the situation has improved. The official added that the special disaster management units were operating in highly inaccessible areas where the flames had spread. Meanwhile, 2 new fires broke out on Friday near the town of Kiryata in the East Attica and in the southern region of Peloponnese. However, the Kiryata wildfire is relatively low risk for nearby residents as it broke out in an area of low vegetation. More than 40 countries have accused North Korea of illicitly breaching a UN cap on refined petroleum imports. They filed a complaint to the United Nations Security Council's Sanctions Committee for North Korea. In December 2017, the UN imposed an annual cap of 500,000 barrels in a bid to cut off fuel for North Korea's nuclear weapons and ballistic missile programs. But the complaint said Pyongyang imported more than 1.6 million barrels of refined petroleum via 56 illicit tanker deliveries in the first 5 months of this year. The countries, including the US, the UK and France, called for an immediate halt to deliveries until the end of the year. North Korea has been subjected to UN sanctions since 2006 over its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Russia has hailed a World Trade Organization ruling on the European Union's anti-dumping measures. Moscow had filed a complaint against EU anti-dumping measures in 2016. Russian Economy Minister Maxim Restikov said the ruling would improve access for Russian goods to the EU market. Meanwhile, Moscow's WTO negotiator Maxim Medvedevich said that bloc must reconsider its anti-dumping tariffs on imports of Russian pipes and fertilizers. Earlier, the WTO panel found that EU cost adjustment methodology violates the trading body's anti-dumping rules. Both the sides have 60 days to appeal the decision in the case. In cricket, England are all out for 369 against West Indies in the first innings of the third test at Old Trafford. Oli Pope top scored with 91 runs, while Stuart Broad made a quick-fire 62 around the end to boost the total. Earlier, England were reduced to 122 for 4 before Pope and Jos Buttler shared a stand of 136 runs to put the hosts in a commanding position. For West Indies, Kemar Roach was the pick of the bowlers with 4 wickets. Roston Chase and Shannon Gabriel chipped in with 2 wickets each. The 3-match series is evenly poised at 1-all. In football, Paris Saint-Germain beat 10-man Saint-Étienne by 1-0 to win their 13th French Cup. Star striker Neymar hit the winner for the Parisians in what was the first game in France after the coronavirus ended the Ligue 1 in April. The Brazilian scored on the rebound in the 14th minute after goalkeeper Jesse Moulin blocked Kylian Mbappe's shot. Saint-Étienne captain Loic Perrin was sent off for a rough tackle on Mbappe, who was taken off injured in the 26th minute. About 5,000 fans were allowed inside the 80,000-seater Stade de France due to the strict health protocols. The French champions are chasing a quadruple of titles this season after securing the Ligue 1 title and the French Cup. Atalanta Serie A title hopes have faltered after they were held to a 1-1 draw to AC Milan at the San Siro. The result leaves Atalanta 5 points adrift of leaders Juventus, who can clinch their 9th successive title if they beat Sampdoria on Sunday. Turkish winger Hakan Çalhanoğlu's free kick in the 14th minute opened the scoring for the hosts. Milan's goalkeeper saved a Ruslan Malewski penalty after Ante Rebic stamped on the Ukrainian. But Duvan Zapata hit the equalizer in the 34th minute before Rossoneri came closest to hitting a winner in the second half through Giacomo Bonaventura. Another weather situation from around the globe.